All right. Hey, good morning. It's Tuesday, and the week's moving on. And we had basketball last night, and it ended the little junior high, not junior high, middle school season. And tonight, JV. So that's my oldest grandson, Cole. So we just run around basketball freaks right now. So it's good times. I love doing that. So that's where we'll be tonight. And this weekend, I think we're going to try and slide out of here. We're heading either, I can't tell. I don't know if we're going to the mountains or the beach, but we're going one or the other. And I think we're driving just so we can enjoy the time like that together. So looking forward to that. Be getting out of here and doing a little bit of that. I'll still be back for Sunday. I don't like to miss Sundays. And so that's where it is. So anyway, man, let's just jump into some truth today. We're in John chapter 6 and slowly working ourselves through this passage. And I hope you aren't wearying of this, slow roll through some of these things. But there's just powerful truth that I think gets glossed over. We love to tell the upside in that sense, or the fun side of Jesus and all the good things. But it's important that we hear that he was very direct about who he was. That he was the Christ, the Messiah. In him is life, and there's life in nowhere else. Because what you have in our world today is a lot of progressive Christians who have tossed the majority of Scripture out the window, reduced it to really just some good motivational thoughts and cute phrases, but have gutted the reality that there is no other name under heaven whereby men will be saved. And so Jesus is not just a good man, a wise and caring man, a model of love. He is all of those things, but he is also the Lamb, the wrath of the Lamb. He also has come and said there is a problem on this planet, and it can only be fixed by you believing in me. And so it's easy to believe in the Jesus that you recreate, and that's why I love walking through the Scriptures verse by verse. It forces us to deal with some realities that oftentimes we like to overlook. We have made the gospel way too easy, and the human element of it has reduced it really to, and it's never been about works. But they have reduced it to really just a nod of the head toward, yep, that's Jesus. Not, hey, he's our only hope. He's all I've got. I need all of him, right? There's not that dependency on him. He's become kind of a genie in the bottle. I rub it when I need him, get him to come out, and I can ask him for things, and he'll give it to me, and he's just that kind of guy. And that's not at all what it is. And so this is Jesus. Raw and real. And so we've been working our way through this, and he has, this has all come about after he fed the 5,000, and the crowds have swelled, and now they've followed him to the other side, and they're like, hey, were you gonna feed us again? And they're looking for this food, and they're even trying to draw, Bible verses and spiritual things to force Jesus to meet their physical needs. And while Jesus is all about physical needs, he has demonstrated that through healings and demonic deliverances, miracles, and all of those things, even down to the fact of not letting a wedding feast become a little embarrassed because it lacked wine, right? So he's got all of those things, but he is saying you have to come to me. It's not about the food. But so they're trying to make it about that. And so they're trying to manipulate him. So they go, hey, listen, Moses gave us manna. He gave our fathers manna. What are you going to give us? And so this prompted this discussion about, well, hey, I am the bread of heaven that came down from life. That bread, that manna, they still died. This bread you eat, you'll never die. I will raise you up on the last day. And so he's very specifically saying that there is life found nowhere else. There is no other spiritual nourishment that you will find on the planet. All roads don't lead there, right? Not your reinvented Jesus, not Muhammad, not Buddha, not any of the gods of the Hindus, the ancient gods of Egypt and Greece and Rome, none of those. None of those will do that. There's only one name under heaven whereby men can be saved. And it's important that we hear this and we understand this and we draw down on this. So he has already told the manna from heaven sustains the flesh. The living bread of heaven sustains the soul, the spirit. It is spirit, right? So he's forcing this. They're missing this. Some of these have lacked the ability to hear and comprehend what he's saying, and so that's where we're getting ready to get into. He said, so let's just we're in John chapter 6, and we're kind of in the middle of a conversation. He says in verse 51, I am the living bread that came down out of heaven. If anyone eats from this bread, he will live forever. And the bread which I will give for the life of the world is also my flesh. He's saying, I'm giving my life. Now, they haven't comprehended that yet. Though it is written, you can see it all throughout the Old Testament. You can see where there was going to be this. They have not made that connection yet because it really hardened to their hearts to the scriptures. And so they see it from a myopic perspective, a fleshly kind of a thing. They're looking for an earthly king and an earthly kingdom and all of those issues, and they're thinking that if they do these good works, these works of the flesh, they'll eventually get there. And Jesus is kind of shattering all of that. Your works won't get you anywhere. This is not a physical kingdom. It's a spiritual kingdom. They're missing all of those things. So then that's why verse 52 pops up, right? And so they're like, then the Jews began to argue with one another, saying, "How?" So they're looking at each other as he's talking in the synagogue, and they're going, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat? This is weird." So Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly," right? Another truth bomb, right? Every time we see that, so they're like, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" Now, they missed the whole metaphor of all of the Old Testament that was drawing to this day. They missed all of that. The water out of the rock, the manna that came down from heaven, all of those aspects of things that demonstrate life, the dead bones rising, right? All of those metaphors they have missed. They can't see that they're dead and need life. And so this is Jesus saying, if you want life, you have to consume life. Life for life, right? So if you want life, you have to consume me. That's what he's saying. Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in yourselves. The one who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has what? Eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day." So what's he saying? Hey, you consume me, you have eternal life, right? He didn't just say, "Hey, I need you to believe," and then just go live any way you want. If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. It's an all-in. This is not let's see, yeah, I'm gonna have some of this, and I'm gonna have some of that, and I'll have a little bit of Jesus. It's not that. It is, I'm gonna shove all that aside. I want him, right? That's what it is. So this is the conversation that he's having, and they are lost in this whole flesh and blood thing. In fact, the disciples will as well. But let's just keep moving, and this will make sense in a minute. He says, "The one who eats of my flesh and drinks of my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day." Verse 55, "For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. The one who eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I am in him." We're all tangled up together, right? You accept Christ, you invite him, you get the Spirit of Christ within you. He is in you, you are in him. He's the vine, you're the branches, right? Apart from him, you can do nothing. It's the same metaphor, the same purpose and point, different metaphors. Vine and the branches. This is the bread that you must consume if you want to live. All of those aspects of things. This is what he's speaking of. Just as the living Father. Now this is why we know this. It's about life. If you want life, you have to consume Jesus. You will get it nowhere else. Nowhere else. And so he says, just as the living Father sent me, right, in a sense, and I live because of the Father. He has given me. I'm an example of what it looks like to be in the flesh, yet yet not of it. In the flesh, let having life, because life is in me, because I have consumed the Father. He and I are one, right? The one who eats me, he will also live because of me. The Father has given me life in the Son. I'm giving you life in the Son. And so this is exactly what he's trying to drive home. Then he says this, verse 58. This is the bread that came down out of heaven, not as the Father. Almost you can sense himself like pointing to himself. This is the bread of heaven. Me, the Messiah. I am the bread of heaven that came out of heaven, not as the fathers, not as the manna did, which was a type of that, because they ate and died. The one who eats this bread will live forever. Now, this is powerful truth. The living Father sent me, and I'll live because of the Father. And in the same manner, if you consume me, you will live forever. Now, so what is this? What does it mean to eat his flesh and drink his blood? Because they're all caught up in that. If we wander back up a few verses to verse 35, he made it plain. Listen to what he says in verse 35. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. All right? This is the bread of life. This is his flesh, right? The one who comes to me will not be hungry. So what does it mean to consume his flesh? To come to him. That is synonymous. Coming to him is eating his flesh, right? If anyone wishes to come after me, right, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me, right? It's all about him. This is what it is. That's why Jesus, when he saw the woman at the well, says, hey, I have food you don't know of, right? My will is to do that. My purpose, my food is to do that which God desires for me to do. Now, so we know then that to eat his flesh, to consume that, is to come to him, because he is the way. Right? That's that whole deal. And then he says, and the one who believes in me will never be thirsty. What's he saying? What does it mean to drink his blood, or the living water, however you want to phrase it, to believe? So it's coming to him, realizing that he is the way, believing in him. What does he say every time he says, believe in me? What do you have? Life, right? So I'm going to come to him, because he's the only way. I'm going to believe in him that he is the life, and I will receive that. That is exactly the point of everything he's been saying right here. Now, so we go back down here to verse 52. No, we've seen 52. Verse 59, it says, these things he said in the synagogue as he taught in Capernaum. So, verse 60. He says, so many of his disciples, when they heard this, said this statement, said, this is very unpleasant. This is not, I don't like what I'm hearing. We eat flesh, drink blood. That sounds weird. I don't know. And then Jesus looks at them and he says, aware that his disciples were complaining about this, said to him, is this offensive to you? This is offensive to you? I have come down to give you life. I am the bread of heaven, and I'm offering myself to you. And if you consume me and hear my words and do them, you have life. And that's offensive to you? He said, what then if you see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? So what if you, and some will, what if you see me ascending as before? It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh provides no benefit. What's he saying? Listen, there's no benefit in this flesh. I'm heading back. This is a temporary thing. Your life is a temporary thing. You're going to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before. And if you want to go there with me, it won't be the flesh that does that. He says, if the Spirit, it is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh provides no benefit. Where do you think I get life from? From God the Father, from the Spirit. And so he's saying, listen, when you see that, maybe it'll make sense to you. It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh provides no benefit. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and they are life. I'm giving you spirit and life here. And so then in verse 64, he says, but there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were who did not believe and who it was who would betray him. See, this is something that he said at the beginning, right? Many believed in his name, but he on himself was not entrusting himself to them, for he knew the hearts of all men. It's the same thing here. Hey, listen, look, there could be 25, 30,000 people there. We don't know, because there were many coming the next day after that feeding of the 5,000. And they arrived and he wasn't there. So then they all go to the other side of the shore. Now they're jam-packed, in wherever he's speaking. And so who knows how many people there are here. But he's saying, there are some of you who do not believe. Jesus knew from the beginning those who would. And then it says this, and he was saying, for this reason I have told you that no one can come to me unless it has been granted him by the Father. Now, that passage, we could take that passage and we could look at it and go, well, that means that, only those that God gives an invitation to comes, or God grants, or God has to grant you. Only that no one can come to me unless it has been granted from the Father. So we could take that from a good Calvinist perspective. And there's a lot of Calvinism's a man who really extolled the sovereignty of God, almost to the point of saying that there are those who will that God has called some to heaven and he's called some to hell. Now, while he may have never said that, that's the outcome, and that's the rub of Calvinism. That's what. And while there is a sovereign aspect, he selected us before the foundation of the world. He chose us in him, all of those aspects. Sometimes we can so over-personalize that we make it about individual people as opposed to a group of people called out. And we saw that in the book of Romans. And I don't want to get bogged down in that today. I just want us to look at that phrase. It literally, the word grant there means enable. Means to invite, means to draw, to compel, give the ability to believe. And so what keeps us from saying, well, then that makes sense, right? He opens the door for some, but not for all. Well, because the scriptures say something different as well. And this is why it was Spurgeon, who was the great Calvinist, that said, all who are chosen enter here. He said that would be the sign when you went into heaven, and on the backside it was all who come may have life. Right? There's a twofold deal. There is the fact that God is sovereign in that choosing, but there's also the fact that man has responsibility in that, and so it's important that we're careful not to see it as individualistic calling and the elect of like individuals elect, but a group is elect. And what is God going to do with that group? He is going to redeem that group, right? And I know it may sound like it's splitting hairs, but it's not. And I want us just to in the few minutes we got left, I want us to wander through a couple of passages so that we can maybe see that a little more clearly. And so in John chapter 12, a little further on, Jesus is going to say this. Jesus responded and said, "This voice has not come for my sake, but for you. Now judgment is upon this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. And if I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people to myself." Now he was saying this to indicate what kind of death he would do. What did he say, though, about that? I will draw all people, right? So it's not somewhat of an exclusive thing. He will draw all people. Does that mean all people will be saved? No. What does it mean? I will draw all people. I will draw them. They will recognize. I will draw all people to myself, right? So there is that invitation, and this is what he's saying. I will do that work of drawing you, of wooing you, right? John 6:45, which we've already looked at previously, says that all will be taught. right? Listen to what he says in 6:45. It is written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught of God. Everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. So they've been taught, but not everybody responds, and not everybody listens, and not everybody believes. And that's the point of what Jesus is saying there. In John 5, in 39 and 40, he says, you refuse to come. He didn't put the burden on, well, you're not allowed because I didn't awaken your heart. He says, you refuse to come. There's a double-edged sword here. God is sovereign. He does draw, but man rejects. And so it is a whosoever gospel. I just want that plain. This is one of those tensions of the scriptures that become cumbersome to people, and they want to fight about, are you a Calvinist, are you Arminian, are you, and it is both and to sort that out is difficult. That's why sometimes when we walk through these texts, it sounds like not sovereign. It sounds like it's up to man, and then there are times you read, and it is God, right? And so this is what's going on here, and so we will finish this up tomorrow, because he's going to get real with the disciples, and we'll see that tomorrow. May the Lord bless you guys. We'll continue this study, and I look forward to seeing you in the morning.